Hello! Hello, hello, hello! My name is Lee. This is the Game Guru live Twitch broadcast. Episode 30 something, probably 38. I don't know. Ignore that. So hi, welcome. I'm going to show you a little bit more of Game Guru, and this is very recent thing that I'm going to show you because I only wrote it a few days ago. Just some little announcements first. I have released what I'm calling from now on the public preview. Now normally we would create some functions and some functionality, some features, some fixes, some tweaks, and then once we're happy with it we give it to our beta testers. And then our beta testers have a play and they tell us what's gone wrong, what's gone right, blah blah blah, what's reproducible, and we fix those. And then when the beta testers have run out of things to say about it, usually at that point we have one last go ourselves and then we release it as a public update. But sometimes we'll release the public update, but if you're working on your own project and you're not part of the beta team, you may suddenly find this update has done something to your game that you didn't like and you wish you hadn't updated. Right, so in that particular situation, wouldn't it be great if you could have a little sneak peek of the public update before we actually made it official and overwrote the version that you've got? And so what I thought I'd trial was something called the public preview. Now it's kind of like a beta, so you're going to access it as if it was a beta, but it's every bit the final public update. And it's just a case that you're going to grab it, check it out. Yes, it still works. Your game that you're working on still looks great. And then a couple of days later, when we go public with the actual build, you know you're not going to break anything and can carry on. In addition to this, what I'm thinking about is I'm going to have another build that is sort of the last build that you had. So let's say we release it and there are some critical issues, we can certainly fix those. But if everybody else says yes, we want to move forward, this is the update, except that you don't want that, then I'm thinking about another build that retains your present functionality. Now there's other ways to do that. This way obviously means you can't have further updates, but this is kind of the point. If you want to stabilize your version of Game Guru with a particular version, for example version 1.11, and you don't want all the other updates until you finish your game, that's very reasonable, absolutely reasonable in fact, there's a little trick you can do, which is something I can probably show you actually. So if we go to Steam, now in case you don't know, Steam is usually installed with lots of folders. As you can see, it's quite a bit confusing. The only one you're really interested in is the Steam Apps folder. And then inside here there's lots of other crazy files that you don't really need to worry about. It's the common that you want. And as you can see, I've actually got a few little games that I've got from Steam. Don't know what Witcher 3 is doing in there. I think it's all the things that you've currently installed. It's not just software, it's games as well. Now look what I did. I've got two Game Gurus. What's going on here? We've got Game Guru and then Game Guru Backup. And all I did was, obviously there's our Game Guru folder with all our Game Guru files, and this is the one you'd run if you wanted to run Game Guru. What you can do is copy and paste. 12 gigabytes, is that all? You'll find it's 12 gigabytes because not only have I got all the DLCs, I've got a large chunk of assets from the assets store. I've also got a lot of media that I've been testing from third parties and lots of things in between, so it kind of adds up. But don't worry, Game Guru is not 12 gigabytes in size. It's only 2.5 gigabytes for the core product and an additional 2 gigabytes if you have all the DLCs. So it's only 4.5 gig. Okay, so that's ticking along, but we don't need that to complete. I'm just going to show you that once it's been copied, you can rename this to whatever you want, maybe the date stamp of when you copied it or the version number that it represents. If you want to know what the version number is, just look in version.ini and that tells you what number it actually is at that particular point. So maybe that's what you rename this, and that way you can actually run your project quite independent of an update coming in and messing it up. It's a very useful thing to do. Now obviously I must state, once you do this and you're using this version of Game Guru, that's it. You're then detached from the updates that add more features and functionality and all the rest of it. But certainly if you're working on a critical game project, that's a nice little trick. Obviously I don't need a copy, and I certainly want my 12 gigabytes back, so I delete it. So the thing I wanted to show you today is part of the version 1.12 update that's gone out as a public preview today. In fact, it went out about 10 minutes ago, and probably on the weekend, on Monday, probably the weekend, it will be made public if there's been no critical issues. I've created a new forum post, and I've sticked it. It's in public chat, and you'll find it at the top. In fact, someone's already made a post. So it's here, and you'll find all the instructions on how to actually get the public preview running step by step on your Steam. So that's where you'll find that. So I'm going to launch my Game Guru, which means launching Steam, software. See, public preview, that's what it says. 1.12, and we're going in. So the thing I wanted to demonstrate was in response to a question, and I get a lot of questions for across the spectrum of the social feeds, whether it's forums or emails or support mail. But this question was interesting because when I followed the link to the game that's being worked on, I thought, wow, that's a really good game. So I kind of sat up a bit more and I thought, you know what, if I can do something in response to this question, something practical, that game will become better. And, you know, we want great games produced by Game Guru to show off how cool it is. Because I know it's cool, but I think a lot of the people out there just need to see lots of really cool games made in Game Guru to get convinced, really, of what I know to be true. Now, I'm not going to show you the game because it's certainly not finished, but what I can show you is the thing that my little contribution wasn't just for that one game, it was for everyone, because I actually put it in some scripts. Now, you'll find there's a new level. It's called Health Types. Now, again, I must warn you that these live Twitch broadcasts are unscripted, unrehearsed, with zero preparation. My presentation style differs of Ravi's, who does do a bit of prep work, and that's why his broadcasts are much better than mine. But mine are more ad-libbed, and so when I load up a level and start to run it, anything can go wrong. And probably would. But I have run this recently, so we should be okay. So I'm going to do a little tour of my level, what I've done, just to set the scene for you. Got your start marker, which is inside a zone, and that zone has a script attached to it. We have two circular tables. On one table we've got some stones, which is a weapon that you can throw. You've got an Uzi and some Uzi ammo. You've also got another table with these syringes, which I'll show you what they're going to do later. And at the other end of the field we have my doppelganger, and we also have a barrel full of fuel, explosive. Now, the crux of the request was, normally in Game Guru you have a set health. We give you, by default, 100 health, but then you can go into player properties and change it to whatever you want. And when you get hit, that health depletes, and then when the health is 0, then you die and you get another life spent and you start again. But the question was, could you have shields? You know, could you have armor? Could you have something that protects your health? So you've got two kind of health bars. You've got your actual health, but then you've got your shields and your armor and your other stuff on top of it. And when you get damaged, it damages that shield energy or that armor energy before you get to your actual health. Now, I always knew this was possible through script. You see, you could just do anything with scripts these days. But it was still sort of undemonstrated. There's a couple of people who have already done their own scripts, but they don't have the benefit of a live Twitch broadcast to tell everybody else what they did. So I felt it was my responsibility to do so. And whilst I was at it, I thought, well, at the same time, because this was part of the question, could we also have a situation where an entity could be immune from certain kinds of damage? A perfect example is what I've created here, which is we have a barrel of fuel, and traditionally in version 1.11 you could pick up these stones and throw some stones at the barrel, and after about 4 hits of the or 5 hits of the stone, the barrel would explode. It would actually explode, as if throwing stones at a barrel full of fuel will make the barrel explode. Not very realistic, and it's something you would want control of in a more sophisticated game logic. So I've added some extra scripty cleverness, and maybe 1 or 2 changes to the underlying lower system, so that you can throw all the stones you want at that barrel, it won't blow up, but when you shoot it with the Uzi, it will. And I'm going to demonstrate that now by pressing test game. Oh, and another thing about Twitch broadcasting, if you do have any questions and you're a first time visitor, you can certainly post it in the chat window. I do like to derail my presentations and go off on a tangent and answer any questions that you have. So you have them, just post them in the chat window with a question mark and I will get to them. Usually I ask for questions 5 minutes before the end of the broadcast, and that's not very useful because I usually spend 20 minutes answering said questions. So do feel free. And for those not in the broadcast but watching this as a video on YouTube much later, there was a feature that was advertised on Twitch which would allow you to see the chat, which I thought was quite fascinating. But I have the benefit of a second window. I get to watch a time-lapse version of my broadcast, and there doesn't seem to be a chat window on the screen. So I'm probably have to press a button somewhere. But for the moment, I'm just going to have to read out the questions before providing the answer, just so you know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, it's like listening to half a conversation. So you'll notice at the bottom of my screen, I've got... first thing you'll notice, there's no HUD. I got rid of the HUD. You see, one of the telltale signs this is a Game Guru game is that big black rectangle in the bottom right corner with the lives and the health and a little icon on it. Well, there's a command called hide HUDs, which just gets rid of that. And of course you've got sprite commands now, so you can put HUDs of your own on the screen. But I didn't have time to do lots of graphics, mainly because I'm rubbish at graphics. So what I thought was I'd do it in text form. So at the bottom, you can see, just as you did before, my player health is 100, but now you've got another one, my player shield is 200. And so you can imagine that's your armour that I'm now wearing. Now, if I pick up these syringes, I've actually set up that each of those will increase my armour. It's like increasing my shield energy. So it's 200 now, and as I pick one up, or 3, 250, 300, 350, 400. So I've just increased my shield energy by 450 of whatever units you want to use for your game. I'm also going to pick up these stones and use it, and all this lovely ammo. And just before I show you the immunity of the barrel, I'm going to let this zombie have a crack at me. And watch, it's going to take my player shield before it takes my health. So you see, it's chonking away at my shield. My health is completely intact. And I'm a happy boy. And then once I've run out of shields, it starts chunking on my health, and then I'm properly dead. So the idea is, you've now got separate control of your health and your shields. And as I show you the script later on, there really is no limit. You can have 4 different kinds of shields. You can have armour, then first phase shields, and then mega shields, and maybe you have to blast through all that. Then do some nice HUD graphics to show like little concentric rings of all the shield energy you've got, and maybe fading them in and out. You can do all that with the sprite commands now. So I've sort of started you off with a nice script which does all this, and then if you want to put some nice graphics on it and then tailor it to your particular game, and that's what it's about. So now I have demonstrated that, I want to show throwing stones at this barrel. You see, it's knocking the barrel a little bit. It is a physics object, but look, I'm not damaging its health one little bit. it's no longer this focus of, right, anything hurts everything. Because that was fine if you just do want something simple. Dropping any weapon and dropping any enemy, and then A defeats B. That's great, because then you can just make a game within 60 seconds. And that's one of the beauties of Game Guru, that you can make a game that fast. But it's certainly not the game you're going to make your fortune with. It's not the game you're going to wow your audience with. For that, you need game nuances, you need the logic, you need the balancing act, the difficulty curve, all the things that make a game great. And usually that's done in script. Now don't worry, non-scripters, we are going to do something called Louie Gooey, which will allow you to access all this clever stuff, but just by dragging sliders and clicking buttons and stuff like that. That will come. That is part of the plan. But right now, all the power is in the hands of the Lua scripter. So if you need a script, go onto the forums. There's lots of very clever scripters out there, and they'll give you a guiding hand. So like I said, I can throw stones all day, and it will never blow up. But if I switch to the Uzi, and we give it a pop, and then it does. Because that makes sense, you know, these bullets are red hot by the time they hit the metal, and that will explode the fuel. You've also got a headshot. He's not very scary. He's slow moving, and I've got an Uzi. So, so that's the demonstration. You've now got shield energy for players, and you've got barrels immune to stones. And I'm going to show you the script for that now. But before I do, maybe someone has a question. In fact, I'm looking at the chat screen. There is lots of dialogue. I actually wish you actually could see it, because then I wouldn't need to read it all out, which I might have to do now. But I don't see many question marks, so maybe this is just general chat, and we can jump straight to the next part of me showing you the script, if I remember to do so. Okay, there is there's a question mark, cool. This is from Custo11. He says, I have one problem. My game consists of 4 plus 2 level. But if I save my game standalone in first level, Game Guru saves only 1 and 2 dot level. So how I save standalone all 6 levels? Okay, it's a bit broken up, that sentence. You kind of want to be able to save. I'm guessing you want a standalone which has level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. I can absolutely show you how to do that. Should I write it down so I don't forget? Yeah, I'll do that. So save maybe a 6 level game. I can totally show you how to do that. But after I've shown you this script, otherwise we'll lose some continuity. Pirate Mike, respond, set up all your levels and then run them all. Any settings you want, and save the level. Once you've got the level, so open start level and build standalone from that level. It will write all the levels immediately. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'll show you that. Looks like they're talking about that. I'll actually demonstrate that, because that's what a lot of the text on the chat window was. But hopefully, if that text isn't enough, I can show you something else. So I've scrolled quickly through. There was no particular questions about what I've shown you so far, so I can jump straight into the script for you, and then we can go whole hog into showing you how to do multiple levels. So thanks for the question. I will totally get to that in a couple of minutes. So here are the new scripts that I've created for you. You'll find them in Stories, Health Types. And there's 3 of them. And the first one I want to demonstrate is GameLoop.lua. Get rid of that, so I'm not confusing you. And I bet you're wondering, well, where is this script in that what I was just looking at? Well, I'll show you. Remember that zone that this player started in? If we actually click on its properties, you'll actually see that it's actually linked to Stories, Health Taps, GameLoop.lua. Now, what that means is, as soon as the player is inside this trigger zone, it actually launches this. Now that's the normal behaviour. You'd think you have a script that's attached to what basically is this zone thing. So if I actually come out, and I can show you that you can change, you see, you're into outside, inside. So it's like a zone. But do not assume that just because it's a zone, it will only trigger the script once you're inside it, because you have to do some special script commands to detect for that, whether you're inside or outside the zone. If you don't have that code, this script will run all the time, within a certain vicinity. so it will run all the time. So you can assume that this script will be launched, loaded and launched, and it will just keep running. So when you actually look at the script, you'll notice there isn't any code which actually detects whether you're in a zone or not. To know what I'm talking about, if I show you another one, music in zone, see, there's a special command which says if you're actually in that zone, that graphical zone, then loop some sound effect for the music and then activate if used. It's got this special command, but you'll notice in this script it doesn't have one. It goes straight into all this. So don't worry that it's in a zone. It's simply just there just to say you're going to have this right at the start of the game. But it could be anything. It could just be a barrel. But I wanted something that you couldn't destroy and it'll look incongruous right in the middle of your level. So zone's a pretty good way to put global scripts in. So that's what I'm using. As to the script itself, let me try and explain. You still have player health. But what I've actually done, I've set the player health to 10,000. Which means you can be shot at, hurt, everything. It'll take a long time for you to die because you've got 10,000 health. But because I've hidden the HUDs, you don't know you've got 10,000 health, which gives our script the perfect opportunity to reinvent your health. So you'll notice that in the prompt that you see on the screen, my player health, it's not using some global thing part of the engine. It's actually a Lua variable. It's a global my player health that I'm setting up here. My player health is 100, just as my player shield is 200. So I'm just demonstrating some number. It's nothing to do with the health. But here's the good thing. As the player gets hit, I can get the real health through this global, G player health. And because I can record what it was at the start of the level, which I store in last real health, as soon as G player health drops, so let's say it was 100, or rather 10,000, then it drops to 9,000. I know someone's just inflicted 1,000 points of damage on me. And because I actually know that, and the last one, I work out what's called a delta. You subtract one from the other, and you know how many health points were deducted from the player. And then all you do, you actually deduct that same number from your artificial value, you see. So now you're beginning to see the logic. I actually work out the delta of any health loss from the actual player's score. I deduct it from whatever I want. In this case, I deduct it from shields first, and then when you've no shields left, then I start deducting it from the health. So I'll be able to manage my own variables here. And here's a nice little coup. If my actual health goes to 0, hurt the player to the tune of 10,001. It don't matter how much health they've got, I'm going to take more than you'll ever have. And then that will trigger regular player death, and then they'll restart again one life lower. But if any other condition, which is, you know, you've still got health, you've still got shields, it resets it back to 10,000. Therefore, unless you get an explosion that's over 10,000 in damage, the player will never die with this scenario. Only when your actual my player health, which is a value you control, gets to 0. And I bet you're thinking, well, it was a really big one, it gets like less than 0. It doesn't, because I've got a piece of code here which says if it's less than 0, then make it 0. So this condition won't fail because you're like -10 or something. And then the else, if I just let you, because nesting is very important, so you can see what the else belongs to. In this case, if the player health is less than the last health, that means something's happened. But if it hasn't happened, no health has been lost, then look what happens. It records the, you know, the stable health and puts it in last real health. And there's another nice little bit of code here, because think about it, once you're dead, you know, you're going to have to restore your artificial health and your artificial shields, aren't you? So what happens is there's a flag here called ready for reset, set it to 1. And then once you come back into the world, because remember health will go back up to 10,000 when you get a new life, it's going to jump into this, because it's certainly not lower than whatever that will be, probably like 10 or 20. It jumps straight to this. So it restores it back to 10,000. This flag has been set earlier, so you can restore those values, you reset that back to 0, and life carries on. So that's what this game loop does. It basically manages artificial player health and artificial player shields. And it's really simple to follow, and you can imagine you can do a lot more with that. And the prompt is really just a substitute for some nice sprite commands, which I'll give you a glimpse of what sprite commands look at. I don't really want to go too much off tangent, but just for those who maybe don't really have a massive grasp of Lua and all the things it can do, if I show you, let's say title Lua, this gives you some idea of how many sprite commands you've got. You could actually load in an image, so that could be like those concentric ring graphics I was talking about. Then you can create a sprite from the image. Sprites are really cool things that like you move that image around, change the size, change the position, fade them in and out, overlap one on top of the other, change the order of those sprites, all that kind of cool thing. So that's what you would have in your magnificent octopus, let's say. So that's that. That just controls the player stuff. Now if I go back to the scripts we were looking at before, inside script bank stories, health types, there's two more scripts here. You've got increase shields and only take bullet damage. Now if we look at increase shields, it's a pretty simple script. I'll walk it through. There's a global called My Player Shield. Now the reason that's there, you'll notice, wait a minute, I saw that before. Wasn't that there? Exactly. Cool thing with this implementation of Lua, if you have a global variable here, but you actually duplicate it as a global variable here, it's the same global variable. It is absolutely the same one. So one script can change the global value of another script. And that's mighty powerful because now it means this script can increase my shields, which is exactly what it does. If the player is less than 60 units from that syringe that we saw, and you are still alive, i.e., you have a health greater than 0, pop up your shield increased in power, and that's for 3,000 milliseconds, which is 3 seconds. Plays a nice little tune or a sound. That increases your shields by 50. Then it destroys the syringe, and if there is an activation you want to do, it makes sure that can happen. So that's that script. Its job is this one line, my shield equals my shield plus 50, which then increases this value, and so you get more shields. When you get more damage, it has to deplete all that value before you actually get touched on your real damage. Now this is the barrel. I'll just prove it. If I jump to the syringes, syringe, you've got properties. You can see that's linked to increase shields.lua. And if we go over to the barrel, you can see that we're actually attached to stories, health taps, only take bullet damage.lua. Now, I bet you're wondering how I manage that. I didn't add any extra hard-coded hacky Lua commands or anything like that. This is all done using the commands you can already get access to. And it shows as we add more commands to Lua, the combinations of things you can do in your game increases exponentially. So we start at the top. And I also don't want this turning into a big coding lesson, but I think it's certainly it's worth going through just so you see how you arrive at how this was all possible. Remember before where I said you could take the real health and then set it to 10,000, and then we have an artificial health that you can control? Well, we're doing the same thing. So just as you had player health and player last real health, you now have G entity health, which is similar to G player entity, and then my entity last real health. So it's the same idea. It does the same sort of thing. And just like the same thing, if we looked at the properties and checked out the strength, which is entity health, is 10,000. So we're doing the same trick. We're protecting the barrel from ever being blown up by its natural predilection, which is when its own health reaches 0, it's going to blow up. So you're throwing stones at it, it's still being hurt, but because it's got 10,000 health, it would never blow up because of that. And because you never have to display the health of a barrel, it's just there and then it's blown up and then it's not there, you don't really have to worry that you're losing a few health points off the entity. So given that, now we can actually create our own artificial one, which we're storing in this other array called my entity health, which we set it to 100. Which is what we want, because that's what it would normally have been. So the init part will just reset these values, making sure that last real health is 0, because we want this to be
triggering not this condition, but failing this condition. So we set it to 0, so it jumps to its else, and that's where it sets it to whatever the actual health of the entity is, which would be 10,000. So it keeps those two values the same until such time as the entity actually does lose some health, and then this condition becomes true and it goes into this block of code, which I'm going to demonstrate next. But the init is to set up those values like so. This is the main. Now this will loop through for as long as the barrel exists in the game, or until you move so far away from the barrel that the barrel is no longer playing any part in your game. So there's no point running scripts on entities that are so far away they don't matter anymore. There is a flag you can set in the entity properties so that it always runs, it doesn't matter how far away the entity is, but by default it switches, it dials itself down after a certain distance. So now with this condition we know that you've thrown a rock at the barrel. Ouch. Because it's less than what it was the cycle before, so it knows it's taken some damage. It works out the difference of that damage. Let's say the stone hit me for 20 hit points. So that's 10,000 is my health, and I've hit it for 20, so it's not very big. Now I'm seeing whether my barrel, my fake health, if there's any health left in it, because that's the one we're going to actually use to control whether the barrel gets damaged or not. That's the health we're going to use from now on, not the real one, Faco one, pseudo health. And now here's the trick. Here's the immunization bit. We set up a local variable called isImmune and set it to 1. So we're assuming the barrel is immune to everything. So that's our condition. Is immune? Yes. 1 equals yes. And then we have this instruction. We're actually looking at what the player is holding in his hand or her hand when the weapon was fired. You see? So I know for a fact that every weapon in the modern folder, and I'll show you what I'm talking about so you don't have to guess. There's a folder called Gamecore Guns, and inside here is all the different kinds of categories of weapons. And you probably won't have as many of these. I have something I've been testing and other bits and bobs, but the one you will have is these. You'll have guns, modern, and then you'll have grenades and RPGs. These are all hot weapons. They're all bullet based. There's a very, very hot projectile at some point in the life cycle of these weapons. And so it's very easy for me to know that if you're using something from this category, then these are all going to blow up the barrel. So if we go back to our script, that's what we're looking for. We're taking the name of the gun, and I'll run test game again to show you what that is. And because it's not just the name of the gun, it also includes its category. It starts at Gamecore Guns, and then from then on it includes the folder structure and then the gun at the end of it. So it includes all of that. And what this does, it looks for a string modern inside all of that. And it will find it. If you've got any sort of gun from the modern folder, then it will find that. That will become true. Now, if it's true, it will actually return something. It will turn some string. So what we're saying is if it's not null, and you're returning something, i.e. you're returning the that particular string that you found, so it returns that, great, wonderful, then it's not immune anymore. It's hot. This bullet is hot, and because it's not immune, you can carry on. Now, if it was something like the stones, which would be, fantasy, no, it would be somewhere else, medieval, yeah, medieval stones. The word modern doesn't appear in medieval stones, so the condition would return null. And because it would return null, it doesn't do as immune, it stays immune, and so it skips all this code. And because it skips all the code, it has no further role in the rest of this function, because you're not deducting any health from it. Because you are actually, shooting it with an Uzi, you're not immune anymore, and then it jumps into here. Then it deducts the health that was actually inflicted, so if it was a light weapon, it would be a low number. If it was a massive explosion, it would be a huge number. And it would deduct it, and if it gets below 0, you set it to 0 because you've no health left, and then when you leave all that and you come into this part, you've no health. And because you've no health, you do this. Set entity health to -1. You now force the real health of the entity to be -1. thus blowing it up, or whatever it does. It may just disappear. Or you could do the command destroy. But what set entity health does, it triggers the internal damage system, and if you've got that entity set to explode, it will explode. If you replace this line with destroy, it would just remove the entity immediately and it wouldn't blow up. So this triggers what would happen if it lost its health naturally and we're forcing the issue. But if you're not zero, if this fake health isn't zero, restore it back to 10,000, just like we saw with the player health before. And then at the bottom, we're just throwing that up just so you can actually see what's going on and demonstrating the fake health for the entity. And that's it. That's so you can avoid, even though real damage has been inflicted, we're constantly resetting that health back to 10,000. But we get an opportunity to detect that health deduction and then decide if we want to do something about it. And we're making that decision based on the gun. And when I say gun, if I run it again, I added in the main GameLoop.lua, it says no using, and there's nothing on it. If I pick up stones, no using medieval/stones, the Uzi, no using modern/Uzi. So that's the string that G player gun name returns. And then you can actually use Lua to actually scan through that string for the bits that you want. So that was just one example. I'm using the weapon that you're holding to determine what should happen when it's shot. And I think it's pretty rational that that's a pretty good idea. But it's not the only way you can do it. If you're writing your own scripts, you can set your own global variables, and you set all kinds of conditions. It could be a kind of thing where you've picked up the golden orb of law, right? And for 20 seconds, you can destroy a certain kind of entity. And so whilst that counter's counting down, your script which says, you know, my entity is immune, isn't immune for those 20 seconds. So think of an end of level bad guy. Whereas you've got a special bullet that for 20 seconds can penetrate his shield. Things like that. So that gives you some idea now of how you can use Lua scripting to create these kind of conditions, which make your game a lot more interesting, because now you can have classes of damage, you can have classes of weapons, you can mix and match, so you actually end up with much more immersive gameplay. You can't defeat that guy until you collect this thing, and then once you're through there, you dropped a thing which you could collect which defeats the other guy, and so on and so forth. And that's the nature of a great gameplay experience, not just charging through and shooting enemies that are basically standing still waiting to get shot. Not very exciting. So that's the script end of it. It's all available in the latest 1.12 update in the folder I've just shown, and the healthtaps.fpm is in the map bank, so you can load it up and just run around here and then have a play around with adding, you know, more if you wanted. So you can have a lot of them, and maybe a lot of zombies. We like zombies. We like zombies. Rennie. And we pick up the weapon we want. Now, here's a cool thing. Look, you've got headshots for if you're very accurate. There's headshots for all the enemies, so if you're very good with it. And now there's another thing I added in the... you shoot him in the belly, it just bounces off. But it does hurt. Now the reason, even though he said health is 100 yet it fell, is because they didn't set the zombie health to 10,000. You see, you've got to set it to 10,000, so these stones really don't do any damage. But if we did this... I can't believe I missed everything. Yes! Even zombies aren't immune to explosions. And we've run out of bullets. Ah well, barrel gets away with it. So I'm just going to have a quick peek at the chat to see whether we've got any great questions so far. I'm just going to scroll up. It's not really good at holding its position. It keeps resetting to the bottom. Parrot Mag, after the Twitch session, make a post on the forums and we will help you absolutely out. The forums is the place to be. Both forums, both Steam forums and the Game Guru's official website forums, both receive answers extremely quickly. You know, you're never going to be wanting for answers. Just make sure your questions are nice, closed-ended questions. If they're too open, like how do I make a game, it gets a bit difficult to answer questions like that. But yeah, if you've got a specific question, you'll definitely get a specific answer. Even if it's me. I do the rounds every day. I go and check out every post. and try and make an answer. Usually the community beat me to it, but sometimes I can add a little bit of extra flavour. Sometimes. VRG 2015 asks, is it possible that enemies are fighting against each other like enemies in the old Doom? Enemies fighting each other. You know what? That's not... there's no scripts built into the core version that let you do that. We're calling it ally behaviour, and that's currently on the community voting board. So when that comes around, we're going to add a lot of extra AI, which allows allies to create teams. So they'll team up with the player, or they can have factions that can team up with each other, or can go against certain enemies but not others, and you can have this wonderful mix and match. We had little bits of it in the later versions of the FPS Creator Classic mods, but in Game Guru we stripped a lot out in order to refocus on the things that we wanted to do for the particular engine on the rewrite. But it's on the community voting board. When it comes to number one, we will do a wonderful job. But that said, only a few days ago I already got a report from someone who'd already created ally behaviours with scripting. So they actually got one entity to move towards another entity that it didn't like and start beating it up. So you can actually do all that in script, but it's pretty clever stuff. Didn't think it was possible, but someone's managed to make it possible. There are some really cool commands. If I show you one command, that might give you a clue as to how it was all possible. Script bank soldier. Where's the soldier? And we scroll it down here to, here we go. AI entity go to position. That will get the AI system to find a path from where this entity is to a particular location on a map, and it will move it to there. That position doesn't necessarily have to be the player. It doesn't have to be waypoint nodes. It could be some enemy that this entity doesn't like, and it can move to that. And then you then combine that with commands like... Yeah, there's a lot of built-in AI going on here. It's all very cool. But if we look in another script, like fantasy character, you'd use commands like this. Setting animation frames, playing animations, setting the speed of those animations, detecting the animation frames for when you've created hits. So an entity can move to an enemy, it could start an animation, it can detect the animation frame, and at a certain point, as in the point of impact, you can deduct enemy damage and distribute it any way you want. So you can actually create that yourself in script, but it's all very techie stuff. You need to know a lot of scripting, but it's on the voting board that we actually put it in the engine, so all you're going to do is drop it down and say, you're an ally, you're team 1, you're team 2, you're team 3, and then you press test game, and it all just goes to hell. Just everyone starts fighting everybody else. But that's something we're going to have to do for you, so you don't have to mess about in script. And it's on the voting board to be voted up. And so if you want that, go to the voting board, check it out, look for ally, and then you'll see the thing that we're going to do it and work on. So hopefully VRG, that gives you a bit more picture of the plans there. Tom 181, hey, I want to get into scripting. What is the best thing to script for a beginner? The best way to start scripting is... Great question, because it actually feeds into something we added in version 1.12. No, it isn't a Lua script, before you get excited. It's in the help, and at the bottom of the help menu, there's one called Lua Scripting Advice. Because every other Twitch broadcast has scripting mentioned in it. It must be winding people right up that who don't want to script, who have no interest in coding. Who chose Game Guru because there was no coding. And I apologise for that. So to help start people off, Lua Scripting Advice. If you click that, it went to my other screen, so let me just drag it back. You get this wonderful thing. Now, I didn't create this. I did not create this. This was done by one of our many, many wonderful community type people. And it's huge. And we must also thank Joel Segal. I presume it was based on his original document, but it's been turned into a Steam page. And Steam, you got your shortcuts, so you can jump to examples, and it gives you the whole history of what Lua is, its concept, how you get started, the precepts. Very easy programming language to get into, because it's very forgiving. You don't have to write an entire game engine before you can start creating a few lines of code. the engine exists. All you're going to do is jump in and change the little bits that you want. And it can be as easy or as complicated as you like. And if you look at our early Twitch broadcasts, we've got 30 odd of them now. The early ones really walked very slowly into the world of Lua scripting. The ones you see now at broadcast 30 something, pretty big heavy scripts, and I apologise, it must look very scary. But if you go right back to the beginning, we covered things like the health script, which is literally 4 lines of code, and they're very easy to read. Lua scripting is very easy to read, and the Lua commands that we came up with, we tried to make them kind of, you know, basic styles, so you could read the command name and know what it did. So you've got file, I could go on because there's a lot there, and then of course you can have a chat about, you know, if you want to see more, just post it in here, and maybe we can update this document as we go. So hopefully that helps you get started in Lua scripting. I think it's absolutely cool if you did. One, you're able to customize your Game Guru games a lot more than just changing the entity properties. But two, if you're not a programmer, it starts you off with the lessons that you will eventually need if you want to become a fully fledged game developer, where you will need to program. So it's a great introduction. It's to kind of warm you up. It's even easier than, say, using something like BASIC, which is beginner's all-purpose symbolic instruction code, because you don't have to write the entire game from scratch. Game Guru already exists, already has a game engine, has the graphics and all the scripts that you don't want to write. You just get to write the little bits of script that you do want to write. So it's a very easy introduction to programming. And then from here you can get into the more advanced Lua scripting stuff, then start helping others, and then you get challenged on, can you even do that with Lua scripting? Then you come up with a solution and you get your wonderful eureka moments. And then when you outgrow Game Guru, which is inevitable, you know, you may want to write your own game engine, or you want to go for more AAA technology, that's fine. But you'll have a grounding in programming, which you're totally going to need if you want to go to that next level. Drag and drop only really goes so far. And in saying that, our idea is, like I said before, the Lua GUI idea, I want to be able to bridge that gap between you have the power of scripting, but you don't necessarily have to code. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to be really, really cool. But it has to be done in order. I have to do it based on the voting board. And right now it's save load progress in standalone executables. That's what's being working on. Going back to the chat, the best thing is to open up some of the scripts. Yeah, Mike's just providing advice. Lots of scripts out there, just check it out. There's a Steam link. You know what? We're in video land, you can't see this. So I'm going to paste it here. Pirate Mac suggests this. Game community apps, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I didn't even know this existed. This is a big community we have here. So yeah, check out that, what you can see on the video right now. Okay. Synchro Mesh 62 asks, how is the save load coming along? It's doing very well. All the Lua scripting menu side is done. I will can I demonstrate that? Should I demonstrate that?
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Yeti microphone has been reset. Reapply these settings. We put it all away. I think this works, but I need confirmation. This is very confusing. Okay, did we fix it? I'm going to keep talking in the hopes that I'm not talking an alien language anymore. Sounds like a compressor is running in the background. Okay guys, did you all get that? Good. All okay now. Wonderful. Right. Might have to edit that out of the video. Or maybe not. You see, we solve problems on the fly here at the Game Creators. You know, silly microphones spontaneously uninitializing doesn't stop this train. So, we're back. And I might give you an extra 3 minutes of broadcast. That's how generous we are. So as I was saying, I can't remember when it cut out, but what you're looking at here is the stuff that I took out of version 1.12 so we could get the NVIDIA bug fixed. And at the same time released 1 or 2 changes. So if I show you the change log, this is what you're going to get in version 1.2. As you see, we've been kind of busy. And only 1 or 2 of them are actually related to the save load stuff. Because you know what? We have a lot of feedback. You know, there's a lot of feedback from a lot of different places. And it's all important. We're trying to do as much of it as possible. But in terms of the save load progress, now these are done. And the fact that the scripts, which again I'll show you from dev, these are also done. I mean, I would like to demonstrate it, but I just might waste 10 minutes and it won't work at the end of it. But these will be dropped back in. The game menu and the title screen will reintroduce the load and save buttons. The UI works for it, so you can select the buttons and things like that. What we don't have is actually scanning the game and its current progress and then essentially putting it on a file and then grabbing that file and grabbing the screenshot and sticking that in the folder. We don't have that bit yet. But now version 1.12 has reached public preview, and then in a couple of days we'll release it live. I'm then free to reintroduce these scripts, add the save load mechanics, scan the game to make sure that all those states are recorded, you know, your health, what weapon you carry in, the positions of the enemies, any entities you may have collected, and more difficult, the lower global states. If you've got custom scripts, those states would have to be recorded. How does an end user add those states that I have no idea what globals you're using or which states you want to retain? How is that going to be involved in the whole save load process? Are you going to have to get involved in scripting? Who knows? So these questions still need to be answered. But it really is not a big job. It's probably another 4 days, and then we have proper save load with screenshots in safe standalone, which is great. That's exactly what we want. And I've got a few other things that I want to throw in as well. There's quite a list, more feedback that are going to go into the next one, which is 1.13. We probably won't put the building editor into that version. I think it's sensible we don't. And then we'll look at the voting board once that's been released through public preview and then live. And then once save and load is in and working and everyone's happy with it, then we'll look at the voting board. And in the meantime, we'll probably get to sneak in a few little fixes as well. From my bulging list. Everyone's reporting bugs both in the main forum and also in a private beta forum, so we're collecting all those up, and then it's my job to prioritize them and put them into either a low, medium or high state of emergency. The high ones are normally into 2 categories: crashes, or terribly bad functionality that needs solving immediately, and also any features that are promoting the creation of great games. So if you have a great game and you are missing one little feature that will make your game even better or allow you to finish said great game so you can release it, then certainly drop me an email directly at lee@thegamecreators.com. That finds its way into the high category because it shows you what's possible. You know, if you're a little discouraged on what you can do right now with Game Guru, you only have to look at 3 or 4 of the games that are currently being developed. They're absolutely awesome. And anything I can do to help make those games even better, then I'm quite willing to put some time into that. So I think we've still got sound. I hope we've still got sound. I'm just going to go in one last time on the chat to see if there's any other questions.
VIG says that we are all back on Earth, which is great. And Sparrowhawk, I agree. The microphone has never done that in 38 or whatever it is broadcasts, and it's not a cheap microphone too. I wanted this to be a really decent broadcast, so I bought something called a Yeti, and it's one of these desktop standing huge microphone looking things. And in order to reduce vibration from the mouse and the keyboard, it's now being suspended from the ceiling using a lanyard. Just to create a little bit of a sound quality. For it to instantly cut out, I don't know. I've had it about 2 years. Maybe it is on its way out, but it doesn't get a lot of movement, so there's no rational reason. So moving on a little bit, after the lull, just noticed the PaintShop Pro 7 icon. Best paint package ever. Wonder how many still run it. Yeah, it's PaintShop Pro version 7. It was I used it for about 3-4 years on like the Shareware version, so it kept popping up the dialogue, and when it got to version 7 I actually bought it. I got sick of the nag screen and I actually bought it, and I've been using it ever since because it reminds me of DePaint from the Amiga. And I tried Photoshop once or twice, but I don't know, it just feels all spread out and it's learning a sort of a different language, and I don't need to because I'm not an artist. I just need to do simple things like load in textures, change alpha channels, stuff like that. Just want to hand in art so I can get some placeholders up and running. That's all it's there for. Custo11 posts a YouTube video. He says watch it. I'm not posting that, it might be something rude. I can't vet it ahead of time, so sorry about that, Custo. Oh, my game at the moment. Okay, I may be able to run it off screen. Oh, it's not something rude. Can't be broadcasting rudeness. Oh my god. That's a pretty awesome game. I'm going to show it to you right now. It looks so good. It probably isn't Game Guru. I'm going to show it you anyway. Now that is absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. That is exactly. If you want a feature doing, just send me an email. I'll add you a feature if you need one. But that's exactly the sort of thing. We want to show people in Game Guru Land that we can do awesome things. We can remove all the default graphics. We can change everything. We can change every graphic, every sound, every script. And providing you balance it, providing you're not sticking a billion trees in the level, you can have some great performance as well. So that's really our hope. So if I just jump back to my zombies, they were patiently waiting for us. I'm going to see if there's any more questions relating to today's post, because I don't really want to go too far off topic, even though it's fun to do so. VIG, does anyone have any problems with moving objects in free flight mode? I already put this question in the closed beta. Answers to that: I have no issues with moving in free flight mode, sometimes up and down and touchy due to the angle you come at the widget. VIG, do you mean when it pings off the screen? Yes, I find objects back outside the game area. Okay, let's see. Let's do a practice of that. So we're in free flight. Just for those that don't know, this is top down, where you can drag things about, and then if you right click and hold, and then use the arrow keys or WASD, you can fly around, flying in free flight. Now the question is difficulty in moving objects. You've got a widget which lets you move across all the different planes, and you've got to move on a single axis. You've seen these in pretty much every development 3D developer thing and package. It's the standard stuff. So, but I think what was said, if you actually go and drag it up off the screen, it disengages. You see, you try and drag it off. So I'm not seeing any problems, but certainly if you can do a small video for me and then send it to me, then I can see your problem. I mean, this is an issue. Let's say you're right up against it. Look how narrow that green bit is. You know, that's quite difficult to control. But it's only because of your angle. I mean, you can still use that.
or you can use this if you do want to go up and down, or you right click and you basically pull out, and then you can see more of it. So me personally, I don't have a problem with it, probably because I wrote it. You know, I'm pretty much comfortable with this, as in, having written it line by line, or most of it line by line. So if you can send me a video on that, great, and then I can help fix it or improve it. I'm sure we are a lot of improvements in the editor, so send me a video. That's probably the best thing. And this is the last post before I've just noticed we've gone over, but you know, I wanted to go a little bit over because of the sound issue. I find it on trying to tune big objects. Sometimes they jump about when making small alterations in an axis. Jumping about, never really seen that. I mean, if we make its big barrel, go back to position, it's still easy. It kind of locks in on your cursor. You know, it uses a nice reverse mouse coordinate calc to figure out exactly where you are. So the mouse is always with the widget. So I did that on purpose, and I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah, send me a video. It's the only way I'm going to see what your problem is, and then I'll fix it for you in a future update. So that's that. This has really been about the new health feature that you can do in script for the player, and how you can have entities that are immune to rocks but can be blown up by Uzis, and my call to action for you to go out and create amazing games, which I'm totally looking forward to in 2016. So this was the Twitch broadcast for Wednesday. It should be Wednesday again next week. I shall still be here. It's the usual time, 4 PM GMT. I've enjoyed it. I hope you did too. So until next time, I'll play that music and say goodbye. Goodbye.